And that was a great platoon. It was actually an interesting platoon. I wrote about it in the book, Leadership, Strategy, and Tactics. But we had an officer that had come from a different community in the Navy. So he was a lat transfer. So he didn't have any experience, which isn't that big of a deal. That happens, that's fine. But he was unfortunately, he was pretty insecure, which made him kind of overcompensate with arrogance and ego. And we ended up having a mutiny against him.
No.
Yep. And we had a mutiny against him and got him fired.
Was the OIC on board?
This was the OIC.
Oh, okay.
What did I say?
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought it was, when you said just an officer, I assumed like AOIC or third.
It was the OIC.
Wow, man, that's pirate shit right there.
Yeah, it was pirate activity. And actually, the funny thing is, when we originally went, we requested captain's mass.
Wow.
The E-Dogs requested captain's mass.
No way.
So we all go up there, and there's probably 10 of us standing at attention in the skipper's office. And he's like, what the hell's going on? And he went down the line, and we all, the officer's there, the OIC's arrogant. He doesn't listen to us. He doesn't take any input. And we got done with our complaints. And he goes, you know what this sounds like to me? This sounds like a mutiny. We don't have mutinies in the Navy, and we're not going to have a mutiny at my SEAL team. You go get the shit figured out. And the guy was a respected commanding officer. And so we, roger that, sir. But then he started pulling the thread on, what was going on.
Yeah.
And he realized that guy needed to go. So he fired that guy and then brought in another guy who was like one of the most legendary SEALs at the time and a guy who's revered by everyone in the community.
Yeah.
He came in and took over as our OIC. And when that happened, it was just the best. Yeah. And that was probably the most pivotal moment or the pivotal thing that happened to me in my Navy career to go from, a guy that we have a mutiny against to this guy that everyone admires and loves and would follow anywhere.
Yeah.
And seeing that happen, and the guy that took over was a prior enlisted senior chief, bro.
Oh, wow.
So he had done everything.
Who was that? Can you say? Or
I in the book I call him Delta Charlie.
Oh, okay.
But he doesn't really like his name being used too much. But actually, belay my last. His name has been said before. Anyways, I know he likes to keep a low profile, but you'll know who he is. I'll tell you later. Everybody knows him. He's one of the most revered, loved guys.
Yeah.
And he took over, and just he's like a legendary guy, and super humble, super professional, awesome at everything. He'd been stationed at every SEAL team, every different type of team, and he was a plank owner at Dam Neck. He was UDT. He was just the best. But with all that experience, super humble, put us in charge of everything, let us run everything, just epic.
Yeah.
And it made our lives awesome. And so that was the first real kind of visibility that I had, first idea that I had of maybe becoming an officer, because this guy was a prior senior chief, and it just made our world awesome.
Yeah.
And so I said, at some point, maybe if I can, I'll make the world awesome for 16 guys in a SEAL platoon.
Man, that's super cool. During the kind of mutiny phase, was the AOIC on board, or was it just enlisted?
The AOIC, this was the whole thing was crazy. So the whole thing was crazy. My AOIC was a guy named Alton Lee Grizzard, and Grizz for short. Well, this whole platoon was awesome. And Grizz was this guy from the Naval Academy. He was a quarterback at the Naval Academy. Oh, cool. And he was a star quarterback at the Naval Academy. He broke a bunch of Roger Staubach's records. Damn. He was just a total stud. Nice, down-to-earth, friendly. His dad was an old Navy chief, then warrant officer. Yeah. Just a stud. Everybody loved this guy. And he ended up getting murdered. What? In the BOQ in Coronado.
Fuck, I remember hearing about that.
So it was 1993. He ends up getting murdered. And it was just like a total blow. This guy was one of the boys. I was very, very close with him. And I mean, we all were, of course. And, just totally terrible. So the OIC that was now, when the OIC took over, the new OIC took over, the AOIC had come in to replace Grizz. And like that guy, God bless him. Great guy. I'm still friends with him today.
Yeah.
But like, it was really hard shoes to step into. But, you know, obviously we weren't like mad at the guy.
Yeah.
But so he was kind of you know, kind of a little bit along for the ride because he hadn't been there for very long. Yeah. You know, so he's just going, oh, what the hell is going on here?
And the circumstances were some kind of like jealous ex-boyfriend thing or something like that.
So it was, it was like a jealous ex-boyfriend, and the guy showed up, killed Grizz, killed the girlfriend, and then killed himself.
Man, that's brutal.
It was freaking terrible. What a loss.
Yeah. But yeah, so he steps in and big shoes to fill and a little in over his head. So he was just kind of
he's just kind of just trying to get his bearings a little bit, and then all of a sudden we have a mutiny.
Man,
yeah.
Is there ever a parallel, or like how do you kind of reconcile that tactic in the corporate world, where you know at what point does it make sense to do something like that? Like, is there almost a checklist or a litmus before you do something? Do you ever recommend that's a possible course of action?
Yeah, man. If I write you a letter, you should listen to what I'm saying in the letter.
Yeah.
Because if you don't get on board with what I'm telling you in the letter, you're going to get fired.
Yeah.
That's so, you know, you do these escalations of counseling where it's like, hey, Mike, you know, hey, man, you got to start paying attention to what your platoon's saying to you. And you're like, yeah, you know, whatever. Like, hey, Mike, hey, listen, you really need to take input. Like your platoon chief, he knows a lot. And you're coming up with plans that you need to bounce them off at a minimum and get feedback. Yeah, but I see the big picture. You can see where I'm going with this.
Yeah.
So most of the time, eventually you can break through a person's ego and they go, yeah, you know what? You're right, dude. I need to chill out. I don't know everything. Yeah. My way is not the best way every single time. All right, cool. I got it. I'm sorry. Most of the time that happens. Occasionally, you have someone that is completely blind to their own ego and arrogance, and that's when there is not a solution to that. They're not going to correct themselves.
Yeah.
And you know, this is why I say when I was working in trade when we would fire a guy like from a leadership position, it would be because not because they didn't know how to shoot their gun, not because they didn't know how to freaking read a map. It's because they didn't listen to anyone. They were arrogant.
Yeah.
And if that's how you are, you're going to get people killed.
Yeah.
So
excuse me. I guess even in that leadership role where you would, like from a corporate standpoint, is there a time where you would kind of, I don't know, walk people through how to negotiate or navigate that where their boss is fucked up and they're having to have a mutiny on him? Is that something you ever go through?
Yeah. So generally in those types of situations, what you're talking to, I'll end up talking to the board of the company, right? And now you're talking to the board of the company and you start laying out the sequences that you've gone through with, in this case, the CEO.
Yeah.
Because if it's the COO who's arrogant, then you're talking to the CEO. But eventually you're saying, hey, here's what I have told this individual. Here's the reports that I've given him. Here's the feedback that I've given him. Here's the 360 eval that we ran so he could understand how everyone feels about him. Here's the direct letter that I wrote to him telling him that if he didn't change, he was going to get fired. And here's the next move that he made.
Yeah.
And they go, Roger that.
Yeah. So it's pretty easy
so
at that point.
You hope that people can be humbled. But there's a reason. And look, when you get to become the CEO of a big company, you're there because you have confidence. What you said earlier, like you don't take that job thinking, oh, no, I think I'm going to fail. No, you're like, oh, I can handle this.
Yeah.
But you just can't let that get out of control.
Yeah.
Or it's going to be problematic.
Yeah. All right. So that platoon, super solid. That was the second one. Then the third one, anything, I guess, significant happen in the third platoon?
Well, there's one more thing about that second platoon. So we're an ARG platoon and we're off the coast of Camp Pendleton and we're doing a hydrographic reconnaissance and the waves are freaking huge. And, you know, the Marine Corps is doing a landing and we're doing the hydrographic reconnaissance for the Marines. So it's freezing cold. It's an all-night evolution. The waves are huge. Guys getting washed up on the beach. Like, it's just a nightmare. It's just a total gut check. We get the whole thing done. We get the hydro done. We get back in our Zodiacs. We drive back out to the freaking LPD. We go through the making of the chart and then go and call the boats in for the Marine Corps. The Marine Corps gets done. So it's been like 36 hours of straight work, 48 hours of straight work. We get back out to the ship after the Marines are on land, and the Marines decide that they didn't like the way the landing went. Not on our part, but just on their part. They're like, hey, we sucked. We're doing it again. So the Marines leave the beach. They come back out. And they reload and they're like, we're going to do this whole thing again. We sucked. We made too many mistakes. We didn't meet the standard. We're doing it again. Roger that. SEALs, you're going to do another hydrographic reconnaissance. Cool. Sea state's still crazy. We get back out there. Everyone's freezing cold. And we had just done the hydrographic reconnaissance, right? And for those of you that don't know what that means, you get in the water, and this is the old days, and you have a freaking piece of string with lead on the bottom of it with markings on how deep the water is. And you get in a big line and you measure how deep the water is. And in between measuring the water, you dive down and look for obstacles that might be, that might damage vessels that are coming into the beach.
Super efficient.
Super efficient. So we get in our boat pool and we're just about to like launch swimmers. And so there's the 18 guys in the freaking, all standing by. And we had just done it. We already done it. We turned in the map, the chart to the Marines. They know what's on there. There's been no obstacles planted in the last 24 hours. And someone says, are we really going to do this again? And that platoon commander, the legendary platoon commander, he says, well, we don't have to. But would that be the right thing to do? And it was like no one said another word. Guys got their shit on, and we went and did the hydrographic reconnaissance. Man. But that right there was that's like the mark, the guide for me for the rest of my career. That's is that the right thing to do?
Yeah.
And that's it. No one would ever know.
Yeah.
But are we frogmen? Are we really going to not do a hydrographic reconnaissance right now? Are we really going to turn in a map because it's going to be easier to do?
Yeah.
So that was a huge impact for me, and always left a mark of, doesn't matter who's looking, not looking.
Yeah.
You do the right thing.
To me, it's remarkable that something so simple and such a short moment can have that kind of impact on other men's lives.
Yeah, and it was because it was a culmination of so much that I had seen from that guy.
Yeah.
So many things that he did. He was taking out the trash. He was giving us, letting us plan stuff, letting us run operations. Just everything he did was just ultra squared away.
Yeah. To me, like in hearing that though, like just like the way you say it is super powerful, because to me, it's one of those, there's a lot of ways he could have said that, and just in that kind of delivery, like, because imagine the difference between saying, yeah, you fucking loser, we're going out there and doing it, and shut up and get your shit, like, but the way that he said that has such a different and much more profound impact.
And like you said, he didn't say, we are going to do it.
Yeah.
He literally gave it to us.
Yeah.
And he had spent enough time with us probably at that point to know that we were going to do the right thing. But yeah, it's everything about it. It was like the perfect delivery of the perfect message, and from the perfect leader that I always tried to emulate.
Yeah.